I am here. My name is Deanna Cook. I am a professor at Loyola Marymount University, and I'd like to give tonight a special welcome to the student, staff, and faculty who are part of Loyola Marymount University's Bellarium Forum 2020 on Transformative Justice. The Justice on Trial Film Festival is the signature event for this program that unites 6 courses to understand justice and support our youthful voices in this work. And it is our signature program for the year. But now I'd like to turn this over to our panel. We have an exciting and very lively group of folks today, and I'm so excited to introduce Dr. Cheryl Grills, who is a renowned psychology faculty here at LMU, but is also renowned for her work on racial justice and criminal justice. Then we have international award-winning documentarian whose work is primarily on issues of social justice. And we are so excited to have Micki Dickoff with us. And finally, you met in the film Kwame Ajamu. He is currently the chair of the board of Witness to Innocence. And his primary focus at this point is abolishing the death penalty. So I welcome you and I turn it over. Thank you for being here.
Why am I seeing this? Here? Where?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, Kwame and Micki. It is so exciting to be with you this evening. I absolutely loved the film. It evoked emotions in me, a host of thoughts. And if I wasn't watching it at night, because I watched it last night on a Sunday evening, I was ready to go out and say, what can I do? What can I do? So I want to be part of this. This is a movement here. And so I would like to pose a few questions to each of you to help us all understand both you and how you came to this work and some of the messaging in the film. So I think I'll start with you, Kwame, if you don't mind. And
Certainly.
Thank you. And my first question to you actually isn't about the film at all. It's about you, the person. So you were born Ronnie Bridgman. However, it didn't get past my eyes.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't get past my eyes that your name now is Kwame Ajamu. And so I wanted to ask if you could share with us, because yours is a story of resilience, and I know there's a story associated with this difference in naming. If you could share with us, how did you come to the name Kwame Ajamu?
So I started off this old raggedy life doing pretty good. The first 17 years of my life was indeed pristine for a child, having been born on the Lower East Side of Cleveland, Ohio, just after 2 racial indiscrepancies. So 1975, I was just 17 years old, and I was Ronnie Patrick Bridgman at that particular time. Average everyday kid, you know, who loved everything a 17-year-old boy would love. But on this particular day, May 19th, 1975, a money order salesman entered my neighborhood alive and well, and he left in a body bag, having had his liberty and his life taken from him for a small portion of his pay. Myself, my brother, and my good friend would be courted off to prison for that, tried and convicted for aggravated murder, and sentenced to die. I completed 18 years at that time of this horrible treatment. But nevertheless, I went to the parole board in 1990. And in 1990, I received a 5-year continuance. Upon coming out of the parole board room, I stopped at the telephone and decided not to call my mother and inform her of the delay for another 5 years of this incarceration, wrongful, mind you. but I never got the chance to call her over the weekend. This was a Friday afternoon, and she passed away Friday evening, right around 9 o'clock that evening. Needless to say that this devastated me. At that particular time, my mother was all that I had. And so I had to think of a way to redefine myself, to keep going forward. So many things so many pitfalls that came into my life to make me drag my feet and stop. And here I was in prison, now doing a life sentence for a crime that I had been sentenced to die for, and yet I was innocent all along. And now my beloved mother is gone. So I decided that Ronnie Patrick Bridgman should go to that day. And I wasn't going to take pills and hang myself or nothing like that. I would reevaluate my life, myself, and go forward as anew. So Kwame means born on Saturday. My mom passed away Friday evening. And so Kwame means born on Saturday. Kamau was the middle name that is hardly ever mentioned in my naming, but it is there. And that means silent warrior. And I attributed that name to my mental and physical self simply because when I first went into prison, into custody, actually, police custody, I had told an adult that I was innocent, just 17 years old, and I was crying, and I actually wanted to be with my mother at that time. I told him I was innocent and have nothing to do with it. He lied. He laughed at me and told me I was lying. And so from that point until today, I never spoke with another adult or another prisoner or another person, period, about my innocence in that facility. I just did what I had to do to get out. So Kamau means silent warrior. And based on the fact that I knew my persona, that I was going to stop until I made society realize that I, myself and my good friend were innocent. And that now my mother's gone, and this was really what was pumping my heart, because I wanted to vindicate the sorrows that she had to live with all of those days. Ajamu means he fights for what he wants. And those people who know me, like my good friend here, Micki Dickoff, will tell you that that's pretty much me on point. So that is how I became Kwame Ajamu.
That is an incredible story, and it speaks to your resilience and to your self-reflection and your ability to kind of understand what's going on around you and take a course of action that is in your best interest, that is uplifting. So thank you for sharing that. So Micki, I have a question for you.
I'd like to say that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I'd like to say that I became that activist, that person of so much resilience at the tender age of 17.
Yes. Life kind of tapped you on the shoulder and said, it's time to be resilient, right?
Absolutely.
And you not look back. You said, no, I'm going to stay that course. So we can all learn something.
Absolutely.
On that one. So Micki, I have a question for you. Of a similar vein, not about your name, but I wanted to, last night I watched a film that's part of the film festival called Aggie. And it really kind of showed the life trajectory of this woman who became a champion of arts for justice, right? But you could kind of see how she got, you understood her life circumstances and then how she got to and evolved to where she was at the time that she really got all involved in justice issues. So I was wondering for you, what brought you to decide to tell stories about justice?
Okay, I was 17 and a junior in high school. And I had a humanities teacher who started to talk about Freedom Summer in Mississippi and a lot of white folks going down there to register Black voters. And I really wanted to go. I was really excited about it. And I went to my dad and I asked him if I could go, and he said, there's no way. My father grew up in Mississippi and as the only Jewish kid in town, and he had faced really terrible discrimination and violence and was beat up. He said, I'm sorry, you can't go. And at 17, I obviously didn't go. 6 weeks later, when Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner were found in an earthen dam, murdered by 21 Klansmen who bragged about what they did, and nobody did anything about it, I was outraged and decided that day that I was going to be an activist. What I didn't know is that 35 years later, that film was going to come back to me. And I did make a film called Neshoba, The Price of Freedom. So I started at 17. Then I graduated high school in 1965. And I went to school in the Deep South, the University of Florida in Gainesville. And there were only 4 Black students on campus. And they couldn't eat in the school cafeteria. I just couldn't believe that they couldn't eat. So of course I organized the first sit-ins. And so I kept, being an activist, and then the Vietnam War, and then the women's movement. And my graduate thesis, by the way, was an anti-Vietnam film about Richard Nixon and how bad he was. And they had a PBS station at the University of Florida. And they aired it, and they got all these irate phone calls. And I was thrilled that people got so disturbed at seeing the film that I made, because I certainly, poked him in the eye, so to speak. And I moved to Boston because I had to get out of Gainesville, Florida. And I couldn't find a job. I had a graduate degree, I couldn't find a job, and I wound up teaching. And the teaching was great because I was only a few years, older than these kids. And they inspired me to do the work, and I started to make films. I always said the 3 best things about teaching were June, July, and August, so I could do my own work. My films usually pick me, I don't pick them. And in the 80s, with the AIDS epidemic, and I lost a student to AIDS, and it was very heartbreaking to me. And there was so much prejudice and so much misinformation about that subject that I decided that I would do something to humanize the issue. And I read a book that a mother wrote called The Screaming Room, about taking care of her gay son in the last year of his life. And I was even though it was like written like a diary, and even though you knew it was going to happen, I couldn't put it down. And I said, this is my film. She happened to live in San Diego. I was living in Boston. I called her up. I told her, look, I don't have a lot of money, but I have a lot of passion, and I really want to make your film. And I went to San Diego, mortgaged my house, and was able to make this film called Too Little Too Late, which won an Emmy and all of a sudden changed my life. And I left teaching. And actually I took a sabbatical first from teaching, and I went out to Los Angeles. And I got to make 2 other AIDS films, but this time Hollywood films, which were pretty amazing. One of them was called Mother, Mother, where all of Hollywood came together to donate their time and talent. It was made in 35 millimeter film. I thought I had died and gone to heaven, actually, when I saw the thing screened for the first time. I went with my actors, Piper Laurie, Polly Bergen, Bess Armstrong, John Dye, Henry Mancini, the music. Everybody worked for free. I had gotten a $50,000 grant. We made $1 million movie, and we took that movie all over the United States and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for AIDS research and AIDS support. And from there, Hollywood then really did call, and I got to make a film actually through the man that is the president of Brave New Films. His name is Robert Greenwald. Mm-hmm. And I made a film with Robert Greenwald called Our Sons. So there was Too Little Too Late, there was Mother, Mother, and then it became Our Sons. But this became a big TV movie, a big Hollywood movie with Julie Andrews, Ann Margaret, and Hugh Grant. And we started to change people's minds, okay? And so that's how I got interested in that. In terms of death penalty, it happened because of a personal experience. I was always opposed to the death penalty, but never really was one of my issues until I found out that my best childhood friend, who I hadn't seen in 30 years, that she and her husband were on death row for murdering 2 policemen in Florida. Well, I was shocked. when I heard about it. And my mother, who still lived in Florida, sent me an article saying they're about to execute Sonny's husband. His name was Jesse Tafero. And I wrote Sonny a letter. I'd written her over the years. She never wrote me back. But this time she wrote me back. And then one day she called me on the phone and there was a voice to the face. And I said, Sonny, forgive me for asking, but what the hell happened? She said, I didn't do it and neither did Jesse. Well, I thought my heart was going to come out of my chest. I said, okay, I don't know much about the legal system, but I'm going to come to Florida and I'm going to look you in the eye. And if my heart believes you, I'm going to try to help you.
Mhm.
Well, that letter changed both our lives and took about 2.5 years, but we were able to get her released from prison, but not before they executed her husband. And I was able to uncover the evidence that helped prove her innocence and his innocence. But the problem with the death penalty, even once you're dead, they don't carry on the fight. You know, it's over with. So I made a movie, and I actually wanted to get the prosecutor fired because he had hid all this evidence. I didn't get him fired, but he sure was mad at me because the front page of the Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel when that film went out. So that's how I got started.
That's amazing. It's an amazing journey. And there's so much that you said in there. Like when you said, of course, I organized the sit-ins. Immediately my mind went to, well, then, you know, justice is just in your DNA, right? But there were some other things that you said that I'm hoping that the students picked up on that are with us tonight. Like you said, your students inspired you. And students don't always appreciate what they're bringing to the table in the classroom, and that it's not a one-way street from us to them. They feed us and they can inspire tremendous work that we become involved in. But then you also said something else, which the films came to you. And so that's a moment of discernment, to being open to knowing what your passion and your skills are, and then letting life just present you with the options. And then lastly, you said that you sold, I think you said you sold or mortgaged your house so you could get film. And that speaks to when you do justice work, it oftentimes will involve sacrifice.
Yeah.
You know, and you've described clear sacrifice, Kwame. Your life has been a life of sacrifice. And so I have several more questions of my own, but I'm going to jump ahead. But before I do, because there's some questions from the audience, but you mentioned Brave New World and Robert Greenwald. And there's an incredible short that they just recently produced, I believe it's called The Trouble with Long Prison Terms. And it's about the harsh sentencing schemes that call for more prison time. That short is like a set of volumes of information about the nefarious nature of how this system is designed. I encourage people to try to find it and go see it. And they get into this thing about the stacking effect, you know. So anyway, compelling data that makes a real case for why we need to do some drastic things with this system. But let me move to a question from the audience. And this is for you, Kwame, how do you manage to live each day with the terrible injustices that you've experienced?
So I am the chairman of an organization that fights those injustices. I'm the chairman of Witness. It's the only organization on the planet of its kind. As I am the chairman, Kurt Bloodsworth is the administrative director, and we are, as is all of the members of our organization, former death row exonerees who have been sentenced to die for crimes of which we had not done. So this organization is not only passionate but we are actually the physical expectations of what you're hearing today. We are what you can actually see that happened in the years in which we have been qualified as having been considered the worst of the worst, capable of murder, rape, and mayhem, and yet we were innocent all along. I want to say that as I speak today about mass incarceration and capital punishment, which is the apple of my eye, actually, to destroy, to wipe the world of these menacing, oh my God, atrocities that happens to men and women of color and of just poor, realistic living, right? There is a man who was just exonerated, making 100, the number 172 as of last week. And his name is Robert Dubois, from having been sentenced to die 37 years ago for a crime that he did not do. I say that because as we speak tomorrow, there'll be another one. And the day after that, there'll be another one. And even as we are trying to combat these things, you can look into today's society, out into the streets, and see that the discourse, the racial disparity, and that the total obstruction of government by our policing is just out of control. And this is indicative of why 37 years, 39 years, 28 years, 25 years, 16 years, 10 years of human beings' life having been destroyed based on false policeman conduct, wrongful incarceration, political and social ideologically, all of the things that would make human beings disenfranchised. The color of your skin, the mere color of a man's skin can cost him his life in America. The mere color, let that sink in, of a man's skin can cost him his life in America. And these things are based on ideologies, nothing else. Man-made ideologies. So this is a system that not only like myself and those now 172 human beings that has been broken, that has been belittled by the society that we once loved. We have to step forward, unify ourselves, and be the Trojan horse that sneaks into the Senate, that sneaks into the Capitol, that sneaks into legislation, and turn these things around. Because if not, human beings are the only thing that can destroy the earth. Human beings.
It sounds like in part your ability to have empathy and compassion for others, having gone through what you've gone through, and just the pure importance of justice, kind of like a drive. It drives you in some respects. You wake up and say, okay, now what can I do? The fight is not over, and as you named yourself, right, the warrior, wakes
Absolutely.
up day and says, okay, here I am, let's do this.
There's an innate desire in all human beings to belong. This is why in some levels you have gangs, in other levels you have sororities, things of this nature. There's also that innate desire in all human beings to be at peace, one with each other. And this is where I come in at, because I have suffered all of the mean and the harsh atrocities. How can I not feel compassion for another man when I suffered myself some of the worst, unbelievable atrocities that a human being can suffer at the tender age of 17. At 17 years old, I should have been thinking about Christmas and the like, but I was thinking about not being executed in an electric chair in the state of Ohio. At the age of 17, I was introduced by the prison's captain at that particular time of the death house to the elected chair. We called it Old Sparky. He called it my hot date. Told me that one day I would go on this hot date and she was gonna burn my soul. You see, how can a human being, a grown man, say such a thing to a child who is in such a situation? In regardless to that young man being guilty or not, how can a grown man do this to a child? You see, so we have to get way into the the psychological aspects of why these things happen. And that's where I'm at, because I just don't understand how we can keep on living and doing the things that we do as human beings. I just don't understand it. If I love my sister, I should love my brother.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And Micki, this is another audience that I channel to you. And can you hear me?
You're breaking up.
Oh, I wonder what's going on with the internet. Okay.
Now you're better. Yeah.
Okay, so this is another question from the audience that I thought I would pose to you. And can you talk about how one person can commit to change? How are we the change?
Is that for me or Micki?
Micki, that was for you.
Oh, it's me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
I thought you were having deep thoughts about this.
no, I thought you would talk about Kwame because I see him big on my screen here. So sorry. Look, I passionately believe in the power of film to touch hearts and minds. And if we can charge a heart, we can change a mind. I think one person can make a difference. One person has always made a difference. And one person changes another person, and all of a sudden you're bringing people into your circle. So yeah, but if you sit on your tush and you don't do anything, it'll never happen. If you get together, if you talk, if you're righteous, if you know you're right. If I know I'm right, I'm going to speak up, even if a lot of people think I'm wrong. You know, I pick a lot of hard subjects to do films about. But I believe in what I'm doing. And I have to tell you something about The Gathering. We've showed it a lot around the United States. We probably had 25 screenings of it. And there wasn't one screening that we went to that I didn't hear somebody say, I came in here being in favor of the death penalty, but I leave being opposed to it. So that one person, because of seeing this little film, is going to go out and tell somebody else. And that's how we make change. And particularly today in our political environment, we need to bring people in, and people need to understand they can be the change. You know, people say, oh, what can I do? What's my one vote going to matter? Well, your one vote's going to matter, okay? Because your one vote represents thousands and thousands of votes. People died for the right to vote, so we need to do that. One person can make a difference.
Excellent. Thank you. So I know we're running about out of time, but let me see if I can ask you about the film, and either of you could respond to this. The film really uplifts the issues of prosecutorial misconduct. And there's no accountability, it seems, for the things that they do. Can you tell us more about how prosecutors can be held accountable? Has any of the work of The Gathering been able to, or the Innocence Project, been able to make inroads on making prosecutors more accountable for the crimes that they're committing?
You know, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know any prosecutor that's ever been held accountable for the work they did. I was trying to get this Michael Satz to be held accountable. As a matter of fact, when I did that movie, ABC was very concerned about being sued. Well, it was very important for me that we use his name. They changed some of the other names on the judges or whatever, but his name had to be used. And they made us triple source everything that came out of his mouth in the script to prove it. And we used his name. And it was one of the happiest moments of my life because he did these things, and they all do it. I worked on a case of an innocent man. And by the way, when people say there's never been an innocent man executed in this country, they are dead wrong. I've worked on two cases where innocent people are executed. Sonny's husband, Jesse, was executed for something he didn't do. And I'm working on a film that I've been working on for many, many years about a man named Gary Graham, or Shaka Sankova, as he changed his name as he grew. I fought for him for 7 years. He was 17 when he went to death row. He was illiterate. He had a day and a half trial with a defense attorney who did no investigation, didn't call one witness, and might as well have been the prosecutor. And so after a day and a half, he's in prison. 12 years later, he's languishing there. He teaches himself to read and write. He becomes this extraordinary human being. I happen to go to an Amnesty International meeting. I find out about his case. I see his two children were 12 and 14 at the time, and I get involved with the case. He had a very serious execution date in 1993. I was asked to make a clemency video for him. We put that in the package, and it stopped the execution, but it didn't take him off the death row. All we wanted to do was to get back into court, because by this time he had wonderful appellate attorneys who had uncovered all this evidence that was right there in the police report, including 2 other eyewitnesses who saw this murder that happened like 2 feet away. Whereas the one eyewitness they used and sort of manipulated to say that it was Gary Graham didn't, okay? And we couldn't get back in court. So from 1993 to 2000, all we tried to do was get back in court. And boy, did people lie. John Cornyn lied. He was Attorney General of Texas. George Bush lied. And George Bush was running for president in 2000, and he was running on this law and order, this law and order and tough on crime, which is sort of racist terminology anyway, because that's what they're talking about. Okay? And all this goes back to slavery and lynchings and Jim Crow segregation. I mean, if you look at the states that are killing people, it's the same states that were at slavery and were lynching people, okay? So I just think it's important, if we can touch your heart. Listening to Kwame's story, you gotta be moved. You gotta say, we gotta stop this death penalty. We can't be killing innocent people. They say that 4% of the people on death row are innocent. And that would make today, with the number on death row, 104 that are actually innocent. Some people think it's as high as 10%. Well, when they executed Gary Graham in 2000, how it affected his children, his family, his grandchildren, the spiraling effect is still evident today, okay? And that man was absolutely innocent. I've just finished my new film is a rough cut. I just finished a rough cut of his story that I will hope put out there sometime next year, where I hope I prove the innocence. Because once a person is dead, they're dead. And they will not go back. They won't even test DNA. They won't do anything because it's over with.
Right. But they're wrong. And their family, the effect on their families lives on.
It's devastating. It's not just the person that's in prison, their whole family's in prison, their mother, their father, the children, their grandparents. And what it did to Gary Graham's children, I actually followed those kids for 18 years up through high school. And you know what? They had a hard time. They couldn't really break that cycle as much as it hurt me, okay? What we have to do is we have to offer hope and opportunity to every child. Every child deserves the same. And when I went and shot in the schools that these kids were in, they were terribly inferior. I could see they're inferior. I was watching one of the kids, the boy, I followed 3 girls and a boy. His name was Shaka. He was named after his grandfather, who changed his name to Shaka Sankova. And Shaka's sitting there, and I'm filming him. And he's in the back of the room, and I see that he's squinting. So afterwards, I said, "Something wrong with your eyes?" He says, "Well, I have some problem." I said, "Let's get to the eye doctor." So he got to the eye doctor. He got glasses. He could finally see. But I was there 2 days filming. Why didn't the teacher see that he couldn't see? Why didn't somebody help him? Okay. His father was in prison. His mother was having problems. I mean, there was nobody there for him. And one of the things that really affected him is his lack of self-esteem. And as much as I would praise him and talk to him, he couldn't do it. And I would say, Shaka, you just joined the soccer team. Why did you quit? He said, well, I quit because, if I stay and I fail, it's better for me to quit. I said, no, it's not better to quit. The only failure is not doing, but he had such an innate feeling of inferiority that he couldn't break the system. I actually offered to bring him to California so he could finish high school here. And he turned me down.
Yeah.
He turned me down.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is we need to save the children. We need to save them. They're our future. Every single child should have the same opportunity as everybody else in education and everything else. They need parents that say you're good instead of bad. They need to get the same things that white people get, is what I'm saying, okay? And there's still racial discrimination in this country, as you know. And talking about those 7 executions, those federal executions, that's Trump and William Barr, because there was a 17-year moratorium on executions for federal, but they thought, oh, this is going to help him win his election. So he's executed 5. There's another one tomorrow that's being executed, and the 7th man on Thursday. This has got to stop because somebody, I think it's a political feather in their cap, okay? We need to hold our officials accountable, whether they're prosecutors, attorney generals, or presidents of the United States. They need to be held accountable, because the only way we're going to save this world is if we all come together as one.
Right. Excellent point. And Kwame, can you add to that by maybe sharing what are some of the ways in which the Witness to Innocence is advocating for change? What are some of your campaigns?
Yeah. So one of the good things that, really good things that are going on is our Accuracy and Justice program. And this is a workshop that we have put together to actually dialogue with the prosecution. And we have been successful in a number of states, waiting now to go into San Francisco. I see they just got some kind of, integrity unit there. And so we'll be going there probably in the next months to come. But what happens within the organization and our Accuracy and Justice program is that we just like now, we have a moderator, which is done by either Elizabeth Zitron, which is my second chair, or Richard Peter, who is the treasurer, or Sarah Marquez, who is a board member. Also 3 lawyers. And so either one of them will moderate when we go in, and we use a 3-person panel consisting of all death row exonerees, of course, and members. And what we do is pretty much like we're having this discussion now. The difference is that usually the prosecution, we have to keep them in check because they want to retry a case of an innocent man or woman first and foremost. Then we have to tell them that we're not here to perpetuate any wrongdoings or to say that you guys are wrong. We want you to understand how these things happen in the forefront of a case. And so by us doing this, it gives them the ability, because prosecutions doesn't cross the aisle and talk to the defense and vice versa. So now this gives them a better understanding of what goes on that defense side and vice versa, and how we can stop that one sheet of paper from being up under this man's desk for 16 years while someone sits in a cell, and that type of stuff. And we're having great success in this. We have a from good to bad rating system, 1 to 5, and we haven't got under 5 yet. And so we're going pretty strong. I'm very proud of these men and women who have orchestrated this workshop. Myself, I'm included, but it's really good. And so this is one of the things. The other thing is that I'm in the process of instituting a community initiative to further foster the understanding that you just can't be walking around thinking that because you're 22 years old and Caucasian and your mama might make $275,000 a year, you're free from harm. You're free from being a victim of this type of social injustice that'll jump out of a rolling vehicle and either shoot you dead or handcuff you and take you away for a number of years for something that you absolutely had nothing to do with. You're not free from that. So you need to know these things as a young man or woman growing up. You need to have this type of understanding as a mother, a brother, a father, an uncle, or a family member. We should have a better understanding in the community as to how to circumvent these things from happening in the first place. And so this is as chairman, my objective now to institute some type of community initiative that will bring us all to like a town meeting of sorts, especially good now with the Zoom lens going on. We can get more people involved, with those folks that say, well, I don't want to come because of COVID. Well, all you got to do is click on the link, so this is something that, is near to me as well. And hopefully I can get this going very soon too. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And folks really heard loud and clear your point that any of us could fall victim to this process.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind immediately jumped to, I was doing a project at CIW Women's Prison here in Southern California. And I struck up a conversation with one of the young ladies in the open area. They were out in the open area. So I looked at her, and then as she started talking, she started sharing a little bit about herself. She was a USC college student, junior, her life. And then I started finding all of these other college students that were incarcerated in the women's prison. And then at the jail, the CRDF jail right here in Linwood, again, I saw folks that was like, you're not fitting the disproportionate, profile.
Right.
Black, you're not Latinx, you're not, poor, but yet here you are. And some of these were elder Asian American women. That's just not what you think of. So everybody needs to be aware that at any point, any one of us could get swept up into
Absolutely.
the process.
Absolutely.
So we've got about 2 minutes left, and I wanted to ask if each of you could share a parting thought about this work. Like, what do you want to make sure people walk away knowing or thinking about based on the film or your work?
So let me go first, Micki, and that way you can close it out, because you have I think the better portion with the viewing of the films. Guys, I think that from the perspective of the pure abolitionists and Witness to Innocence, a young man who was sentenced to die at 17 years old and raised by the state of Ohio, one who put not only an educational system in that corrupt penal system, but also the NAACP law did that for them, right? I would say that it is very, very, very imperative that as a community, we band together and seek more knowledge towards why these things exist in the first place. I would say that it is my solemn oath to you as a leader in one of the foremost organizations in the world over, that I will be here until the day I die, fighting and standing in allegiance with those who fight to see that there's no more capital punishment. And the reason for capital punishment, oddly enough, people would say, oh, you kill folks, you do this, all those things happen. But you need to know that in order for them to have an execution, that there was no fairness involved. In order for them to kill someone, that person was of color, that person was poor, that person was disenfranchised, that person was dehumanized. And so this is why I do what I do. And we have to stand together as human beings and be the force of God's almighty plan and make these things go away. This is why I'm here. This is what I want from you. And this is what I pray you come together tonight and understand. And I want to thank you for having me and my organization represent this moment today.
All I
Thank
can
you so much.
say is amen. And I think I'm going to give you a nickname, Notorious KKA. A force to contend with. Okay, Micki?
Well, you can see when I meet people like Kwame, you know, when I was interviewing them, I had them look directly to camera and I was off camera watching monitors. I was glad I was off camera because I cried my eyes out through the whole thing and they didn't see me before. And I meet the people that I met and Witness to Innocence, and I meet all over because I do this work a lot. It's for them we must do it because every human being has worth. Every human being has to live to their full potential. And I just like to I want to thank the festival for inviting us and having us in your festival. But I'd like to close with this quote from one of my heroes, civil rights worker named Ella Baker. And she said, until the killing of Black men, Black mother's son, becomes as important to the rest of the country as killing white person's sons, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We cannot rest. And we have the power in us to make that change. And we can do it if we do it together and from the heart. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And both of you took us to church in your closing points. Thank you so very, very much.
It's my pleasure and honor.
Yes, and I will be following your work, and I'm looking forward to talking to our students later this evening after they watch the film. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As they would say in Ghana, in tribute to your name, Kwame, Madasi Pa Pa Pa. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Grills, for that incredible panel. And thank you so much, Kwame and Micki, for sharing your experiences with us and sharing your heart and everything that you do. We really appreciate you. And you are all three helping us continue the conversation by opening the minds of others and educating the masses as we continue the dialogue on justice-impacted people and the fight to end incarceration. We are so grateful that you joined us today. Thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
For those of you who are just joining us, my name is Danny Deza. I'm the communications manager here at A New Way of Life. We are an organization that provides housing, case management, pro bono legal services, advocacy, and leadership development for formerly incarcerated women. Welcome to the closing night of the Justice on Trial Film Festival. As much as I wish I could say, I could tell you to register for another night of the Justice on Trial Film Festival, tonight is our last night. In the past 5 days, we've heard so many powerful stories and talked to many filmmakers and artists from all over the country. Even though we are in the middle of a pandemic, we still safely came together and not just made a show, but sparked conversation, learned from one another, all through the powerful tool of film. Art can be the fuel for a movement, something we can all be a part of. Thank you, LMU, for making this film festival a reality, and thank you to my team at A New Way of Life for all of your hard work as we continue to support formerly incarcerated women and their families and push the narrative to end mass incarceration. If you want to continue learning about our movement to end mass incarceration and learn how you can support A New Way of Life's freedom work, please join us on social media so you can stay up to date on future events. Join us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. These links are being placed in the chat box to your right. So click, follow us, tweet us, whatever you want to do. We are here and we would love for you to join us in future events and so that you know when the Justice on Film Trial Film Festival will happen next year. So also, did you know tomorrow is National Voter Registration Day? Now you do. So also in the chat box, you will find headcount.org where you can register to vote and also check your voter registration status. 2020 has been a tough year for all of us, and your voice now matters more than ever. So please, one of the many things that we've learned in the past 5 days at this film festival is that we need to know where our ballot is going on November 3rd. So please check your voter registration status and or register to vote. So now if you didn't catch the first screening of the many films we have for you tonight, there is an encore. So in the link below, I'll ask you to click that in a moment. That link will allow you to watch 2 of the short films from Hidden Lives Illuminated from 2 filmmakers who are currently incarcerated at the Pennsylvania State Correctional Institute of Chester. After the short film, there is a film by Brave New Films who called The Problem with Long Prison Terms. The Problem with Long Prison Terms. And after that will be The Gathering again. But stay tuned to that. After The Gathering, there will be a special performance by Grammy-nominated recording artist Aloe Black. So with that, I close the 8th annual Justice on Trial Film Festival. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for everyone for your support. And thank you to all the panels and filmmakers for being a part of this wonderful thing we're doing, this wonderful film festival we are doing. Thank you, have a good night. Enjoy, click the link at the bottom of this video and enjoy the film, enjoy the encore, and I will see you next year. Thank you.